All right. Welcome, everybody, to my live demo of Unspool, but that might not be the name, but I think it's a cool name. Um, but it was currently, it was prior, it was StoryWeaver, which was um, Melanie's application, which was a way, I love the way that she described it to me, which is when I was finally sold on it, which was if Dramatica theory and what Narrova is all the knowledge, right? It's like all the story structure and everything that's in there. Then StoryWeaver was a way to think your way into a story form, right? So if I go into Narrova here, and I believe, hold on, I have a lot of open stuff. So let's see. If I share this here, so that should pop up. Yeah, cool. All right. So, oh, this was a Superman discussion. Yeah, so if you go into Narova and you just say, although now it's not going to work, but if you were to say, I have an idea for a story, or this is the story that I'm working on, it would just right away try and help you get into the story form of what it is that you're working on. So that's okay if you really know Dramatica theory and you know what it is that you're looking for, or you want to learn Dramatica theory and you want right into the depths of it right away. So, for instance, the Lone Starling story that I did last week in the live stream, to get to this, with like acceptance and non acceptance and all this other stuff, it would always come from that place because it knows everything, right? And in Dramatica theory, the dynamic pair with knowledge is thought. So, the way that you get to different points of knowledge is to think your way to it. So what we did is we brought over all the stuff from StoryWeaver and put it into Narova, so it's just all there for you. So if I clear out the context here and you just say, I want to write a story about blah, 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 then it's going to actually take you through the process. So I did this as a test, one of the tests I did over the weekend on Saturday. And it's a very different experience, especially if you've been deep into AI stuff for the last 2 years or whatever, and you're so used to offloading a lot of the thinking to AI. This is actually going to make you think, which actually feels a little uncomfortable, but it's really fun. The other thing is I found it very therapeutic to the point where what I was writing about was so personal that there's no way I'm gonna share it with anybody. And so if you're struggling with something or you have something that you're working through, obviously, narrative is a great way to work through that because you'll start to see whatever it is that you're struggling with, how it gets projected onto other people and what they're seeing from. And there's all kinds of other stuff that we have in store. But it's a really fun thing. So instead of me bearing my soul to everybody, I thought because there are people here, everybody here could bear their soul. And I'll just throw it out there. What kind of story do you want to write? Anything, any genre. Please don't make it AI related or sci-fi related, just so I can do something besides AI. Um, any sort of ideas you have, you can just throw it in the chat and hopefully, so I had this, although this is not too personal, but I just had an idea of because I was just thinking like a Stephen King sort of thing where four friends are off hiking through the forest, California woods, and they end up getting lost. And then they start to break down, total psychological breakdown. And I have no idea where that idea is coming from. And even without any kind of story structure to start working through it. So I'm hoping somebody here will throw out a story idea and then we can get started. Even if it's a genre, if you just have an idea for a genre, that'll get people started. Like romantic comedy, action adventure, thriller, anything. Hopefully, somebody, the people here that are watching, just throw out a genre or I will do the whole random thing. Nobody? Oh, come on. Oh, speculative fiction. That's very specific. That would be what exactly? A man wants to impress a date, so he rents a kid for the weekend. All right, I'm gonna do that one. Okay, man. Oh. All right. So I would just say, okay, I have this story idea, and all I have now is a man wants to impress a date, so he rents a kid for the weekend. All right. And it should begin the unspooling process, which is just a way of pulling on the threads. The reason why StoryWeaver to me doesn't work, which always confused me, is story weaving is a very specific thing in Dramatica theory. Um, and I have it set up in subtext. That's like the third stage, right? You have story forming, story encoding, story weaving. But this is kind of almost like the backstory to get to your story form. So this will back into eventually getting to a story form. All right. Hello, hello. Can anybody hear me? Yes. Is that better? All right. Let's try. Go back to renting a kid for a weekend. And instead of this, let's try and do something different because I do feel like that has been something that's done before. Yeah, some people say echo, some people don't. So I will investigate that afterwards. Okay. So let's do something besides renting a kid for a weekend. Plus, I need to reset my whole brain. All right. Let's do let's just do genre first, and then we'll go from there. Anybody have a genre they'd like to throw out? Let's get rid of that. Does anybody have any kind of a story idea for anything? If not, I will just go with my usual idea, but it would be great if somebody in the crowd had an idea. Come on, you've had like 20 minutes while I'm trying to get everything set up. Somebody has to have an idea for something. No, nobody has an idea for anything. Oh my gosh. All right. Man versus the state. Okay. Okay. All I have an idea for story is man versus the state. Perfect. All right. Let's see what comes up. All right. So just to get back to the whole live streaming thing and to get everything back on course. So this is all part of the new unspooling process in Narrova, which will help pull out the threads of the story. So, and it's got a lot of different steps, and it's going to work your way into the story form. Oh, it's Michael's fault. That's totally good. I'm great. I'm glad that you figured it out. I do know it's kind of echoey in here, so that's why I was concerned about it. So let's start by gently pulling at the first thread of your story. Man versus the state is a classic conflict, totally, full of dramatic potential. To help you spin this loose thread into something more tangible, here are some prompts. All right. So when you imagine a state, what comes to mind? Is it a faceless bureaucracy, a specific government, an oppressive regime, or something else entirely? What kind of a person do you see as the man in your story? Is he an ordinary citizen, a revolutionary, someone in power, or even an unlikely reluctant hero? What specific event or situation sparks the conflict between your character and the state? Is it a law, injustice, a personal tragedy, or something else that sets your story in motion? So, in a short paragraph, describe the initial image, situation, or feeling you have when you think about man versus state. So, this is the idea: is like you have your idea, and then you're just going to pull on the threads. And the dramatic quad again is like knowledge is all the story structure stuff, all the story forming dramatic theory, and then think. So, we're going to work against what we usually do. So let's see. And I have no idea. So feel free to throw it in the chat if you like see something in these writing prompts, and then I will just throw it in there. Is it a faceless bureaucracy, a specific government, or Christopher, if you have like a specific one that you want that you see here that is there? Take your time and respond in your own words. You'll use your answers to begin weaving a more complex story thread in the next step. All right. Is it a faceless bureaucracy, a specific government, an oppressive regime, or something else entirely? Who do I see as the man? And I'll just keep going through it and just do my own thing. I'll work my way through it. And if anybody has any ideas that they'd like to throw in there, I would love to have collaboration and participation in this. All right. So let's see. Oh, great. Perfect. I'm just going to do this. All right. So he's going to pick oppressive regime. Man is a mysterious character. Character like V for Vendetta. And the situation is the beginning of labor camps. Rad. Perfect. All right. And then what it's going to do is it'll pull you to the next step of the whole process. So what's the big idea? So now that you've given us a sharpening image, an oppressive regime, a mysterious protagonist in the vein of V for Vendetta, and the inciting situation at the beginning of labor camps, let's use this as the foundation for crafting a focused logline. This is where we start spinning your raw thread into the central fiber of your story. So what is the one core conflict or question that defines your story? For example, will one person's resistance ignite a rebellion against the regime's plan? What specific personal state makes your mysterious protagonist risk everything? Is he motivated by revenge, redemption, justice for others, or something else? What, at its core, is the danger of the horror of the labor camps? Forced separation, loss of freedom, state violence, erasure of identity, or something even more personal? People are forced to wear clothes again. Okay, well, we like loss of personal freedom, separation from family. Uh, what about the personal stake of the protagonist involved? Is he motivated by revenge, redemption, justice for others, or something else? So you can see this is where it starts to become personal because you might personally, without even knowing what the character is, you might start thinking of a story about revenge or a story about redemption, justice. Okay, for the protagonist, we're going to go with justice. Oh, and I like Mike's specific. All right, perfect. Now everybody's getting to do it. Well, the state's overwhelming techniques win the day, and resistance is futile. Cool. All right. Trace Winston Smith. All right. Well, the state's one of the questions we want to pose is will the state's overwhelming techniques win the day, and therefore resistance is futile? Oh, you didn't miss anything, Hank. Again, it was audio problems. Will the state overwhelming techniques win the day, and therefore resistance is futile? Yeah, we're only on like step two. And do I want to throw? Oh, the other idea we have is the protagonist's daughter is about to be married, and he has angered the labor camp warden, who will not let him attend. That one's probably more specific, but I'll just throw that in there anyways. And you'll see here at the end, conclusion prompt, write a single sentence, the logline that succinctly captures the essence of your story, using your answer above to clarify the big idea. Think of it as a description of main character must do something in order to da-da-da when the da-da-da-da-da. All right. Now, I could sit here and do that. Obviously, this is where AI excels. Right now, I'm just going to pull on these threads here. And then see what it does. So see, it's going to keep in step two, which is perfect. Great. That means it's working. So I just went through and I got into all these different ideas, plus people are throwing in their ideas here. So we're going to still stay at this step two. You've given us, or you've given some rich thematic details. The horror is focused on the loss of personal freedom and separation from family. Your protagonist is driven by a core sense of justice. One question your story asks: in the state's overwhelming apparatus succeeds so completely that resistance becomes futile, and then a powerful personal thread. The protagonist's daughter is about to be married, but the antagonist and a bit of labor camp warden uses their power to keep the protagonist from attending. All right. So now write a log line for your story. Use the structure as a scaffold. I found usually this log line usually works great. A mysterious champion of justice, imprisoned by an impressive regime as labor camps begin dividing families, must challenge the will of a powerful warden in order to regain his freedom and the chance to attend his daughter's wedding, even as the state threatens to prove that resistance is futile. I think that's okay. Everybody's good with that as far as the log line? Feel free to adjust it or rewrite it. It's just a log line. Like, I think that's great. Let's go ahead and go with it. We can always backtrack and come back if people don't quite approve. So let's see. All right, finally got into the flow. All right, now that our log line is set, let's start pulling at the smaller story threads lying hidden in your concept. This is where we brainstorm and list any curiosity driven questions about the story, imagining you're an outsider trying to learn more. So, if you're curious about this story, what are the first most obvious things you want to know? Think of questions about the world, the protagonist, the daughter, the warden, how the labor camps work. What details or background about the regime, the camps, or the society would the reader want explained? Are there unique rules, technologies, or dangers inherent to this oppressive world you want to explore? And then here are some examples of the questions. The idea is to come up with like 5 to 10 very specific questions that we want to ask ourselves that are about this story. So I definitely, the protagonist is really a one to me. Like, who is the protagonist? Why do they have to be serious or mysterious? Um, what is their past? I'm going to count that as one question. What does, and if you see one in here that you like, or if you want, if you have a different one that you would like me to add, and let's see if we can do at least 5 of these. What are the unique rules, technologies? Eventually, he pulls a Shawshank and uncovers the warden's corruption. That could totally be. Right now, I'm going to try and stick with the path that's going through here, which is to come up with these different questions before we start answering them. So the answering would be the knowledge, like so. It's like, okay, no, I know it's this, it's that. The warden's corrupt and all that kind of stuff. That's what I know. We're trying to be in this space of thinking, which is a fun space to be, uh, but it's very different. Okay, cool. Here we go. Is this the present, near future, nondescript, real future, or dystopian future? That's a great question. What else would I want to know? Why are there labor camps? Why are there labor camps? That would be a question. Okay, here we go. Does the daughter's allegiance, okay, does the daughter's allegiance stay with her family, or is she, or does she become corrupted by the regime? All right, that's a good one. All right, we've got one, two, three, four. Are there any unique rules, technologies, or dangers inherent to this oppressive world? Yeah, what are the rules of this world? All right. One, two, three, four, five. Let's do one more. Oh, I like hazard resistance. Nobody has anything? I think I'll just do these. Yeah, why is he in the camp? That's a great one. Why is he in why is he in the camp? All right, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven. All right, we got 7 questions there. Let's provide those. And let's see what comes up. All right. Now's the time. All right, you pulled some big, fascinating questions. Now it's time to twist those threads to experiment with possible answers, spin off alternatives, and explore different story directions for each question. The goal is not to settle on one answer for every question right now, but to generate multiple possibilities. So we're just like creating more and more possibilities and challenging all the assumptions that we would usually fall into just going straight to narrative structure. Writing prompts. For each question you listed, come up with two or more possible answers, even wild, unlikely, or contradictory ones. Try to push away from your first instincts. For example, who is the protagonist? One answer, an ex soldier with a secret. Another, an architect who helped design the camps. Another, a former state official now hiding his identity. What unexpected variations or twists might create surprises or deepen your story? What if the protagonist's mystery hides shame instead of heroism? What if the daughter is or rumored to be the warden's child? How might these alternative answers reveal new themes, heighten tension, or make readers question what's really happening? For at least three of your key story questions, list two or more very different possible answers or directions for each. Don't worry about choosing yet, just let your creativity run wild and twist a few threads. When you're finished, we'll start spinning these into larger story possibilities. All right. If you get stuck, just start by brainstorming, what if, that kind of thing. All right. Because 90% of the workforce is in the camps. That's how labor is organized. All right. So let's do that first one, which is why is he in the camp? And we want to come up with like two, three different answers. Let's do two answers. So why is he in the camp? One, because 90% of the workforce is in camps, and that's how labor is organized now. And then two, maybe even something contradictory to that. What would be an answer to that? He was the former warden of the camp. Okay, wait. That would be who is the protagonist? So then Mike has a different one for who is the protagonist and why does he have to be mysterious? Well, one, he was the former warden of the camp. That's one idea. And then people can pick another question that we came up with an answer, or give a contradictory answer to what's already out there. I like the one about the does the daughter's let's do that one. Does the daughter's allegiance stay with her family? One, no way. She loves all the comforts being taken away and not having to work. Um, oh, he had a solution for humanity and they want to suppress it. Okay, so that's why is he in the camp? Or well, who is the protagonist? Yeah, let's do he had a solution for changing humanity and they want to suppress it. All right. So we have this first question. Let's see, that question, this question, and that question. And now let's see if we can come up with an alternative reason of why he's in the camp. I mean, I guess that's also this one, but maybe we come up with something else. And then maybe an alternative one of her allegiance staying with the family. Right? Let's see. Try to push away from your first instincts. Yeah, the idea is like to keep thinking through a bunch of different ideas until you come across something that's not the usual or like just something that's coming off of your pre-training. Is 90% of workforce is in camps? Why is he in the camp? He's in camp undercover spying. Ooh, she's marrying the warden's son. Yep. Let's get some wacky stuff in here. Let's see. Ex-soldier with a secret. Architect who helped design the camps. He had a solution and they want to suppress it. Yeah, let's go with this. All right, so we've got like two different answers for three different questions. All right. Step 5 is spinning the yarn. So now we've begun to twist our story threads by imagining different answers and directions for your key questions. Oh, I'm going to add Michael's one there too. You've begun to twist your story threads by imagining different answers and directions for your key questions. Now let's spin those twisted threads into firmer yarns by examining the potential consequences and the impact that each possible answer can have on your plot or characters. For each alternative you sketched above, what does that answer do to your story? For example, if 90% of the workforce is in labor camps, how does that change family dynamics, daily life, and a sense of normalcy? If the protagonist was the former warden, how does that complicate relationships with other inmates and the current warden? Which alternatives create the strongest, most surprising, or emotionally potent dilemmas for your protagonist or supporting cast? What connections or clashes arise if you combine branching answers, for instance? If his daughter is marrying the warden's son and loves her new privileged life, but the protagonist is secretly in a camp as a spy. Choose 2 or 3 of your most promising or disruptive alternative threads, and then describe specifically how each would affect the direction of your plots, your characters' motivations, or the potential for drama or conflict in your story. Okay, so choose 2 to 3 of your most promising or disruptive alternative threads. Oh, let's see here. Well, one that stands out to me is if he does, or if you did have a solution for changing humanity, what would happen if that solution were to get out? That's probably why he's in the camp. Um, MC is a social media influencer looking for unique angles to get more views. Oh, that's a cool one. Okay, so let's say if the MC is a social media influencer looking for unique angles to get more views and is willing to do anything to get them out, how does that make things more complicated? The work camp, um, how does that change people's perceptions of work camps on the outside? Um, how does his devil may care attitude affect the rest of the workers in the camps? Yeah, I'm coming up with lots of consequences off that one because that one just really rang true to me. Um, Feeling of being trapped in a nightmare, which should feel familiar to all of us. Yeah. What connection about if you combine bleaching and answers? So she's married to his son. Okay. does the answer do to your story? If she's marrying the warden's son, how would that affect the protagonist's purpose, I guess, of why he's in there? In a world of labor camps, how would the internet even work in this world? That's a great one. How would the internet even work in this world of labor camps? So we're just asking questions here. If she's marrying the warden's son, how would that affect the protagonist's purpose? Um, he is spying on the labor camp. If he is spying on the labor camp, um, what would the results of him getting this information out do to everyone in the outside world? Who the heck is the 10% not working? All right. Um, what connection if you combine branches, for instance, if the daughter is marrying the warden's son and loves her new privileged life, what connection is so yeah, if the daughter oh, that's more like this one. If she's marrying the warden's son, and loves her privileged life, privileged, how would that affect the protagonist's purpose as a secret spy? All right. Influencers would all work in labor camps themselves, putting out propaganda from essential. Yeah, see that we don't even know what kind of a social. We think like social media influencer is just somebody Instagram, but in this world, it might be a little bit different. Um, but we're not. That would be answers. Maybe like this. I'll do this. Maybe if there were social media influencers, wouldn't they all work in camps as well, putting out possibly uh, propaganda from a central authority? All right, that's a lot of questions. Focus on cause and effect and surprising revelations. Oh, wait, did I? Oh, yeah, we're still there. When you're ready, share your sperm earrings. Let's see. All right, continuing. You generated a tangle of complex and bitless spinings into strong narrative strands by writing or examining cause and effect world building and dramatic impacts. What would be the fallout, practical, emotional, or societal, if the protagonist's solution for changing humanity were released? How might the regime or the wider world respond? Who benefits or suffers if the idea spreads? If your MC is a social media influencer bent on virality, how does this clash with the labor camp system and secrecy? Also, the fact that they're a spy. Could their content go viral even in a world where internet access is tightly controlled? Would the influencer spark real rebellion, become a tool for state propaganda, or both? How does the regime's control over media alter this? If the daughter is marrying the warden's son and enjoys her privileged life, how does this complicate the spy MC's motivation and risk? Does he sabotage her comfort to wake her up or protect her position so that she can help him covertly? If only 10% of the people are outside the camps, who are they and what power or awareness do they have? Are they collaborators, elites, or simply lucky? What changes if information about the camps leaked to this privileged minority? So describe two of the most exciting spun yarns, threads with real consequences. For each, briefly explains how it changes the core drama relationships. For example, if the MC's world's changing goes viral, does it spark riots? Oh, okay. So let's be more specific that this would add. So maybe less questions and more, a little bit more of an answer part here. Influencers, if a spy who reporting the alarm, yeah. Well, I'm trying to get everybody's ideas in here, so let's see if we can get this to work. So if the MC's world-changing solution goes viral, does it spark riots, state crackdowns, or hope that change is possible? If social media is co-opted for propaganda, does your MC actually help the regime or subvert it from within? If the daughter's marriage pits her. All right, so we got like four. I mean, so let's pick an answer. So the social media is co-opted for propaganda. Does it subvert or does it help? Ends up helping the regime rather than subverting it. It's almost like he goes in there pretending like, oh, I'm going to be this person that's going to, or maybe he is trying to do that, but he ends up actually helping them rather than subverting them. Posing as a social media influencer, but ended up just making things worse and making people on the outside think these camps are a great solution. That's just my idea. It's a little dark, but the MC discovers they have the ability to do all of those manipulative things and uses them to create chaos and manipulate himself into the new dictator. I love that idea. uh, the protagonist ends up discovering how powerful their ability towards propaganda is, and the protagonist ends up discovering how powerful their abilities are, and ends up using them to create chaos and manipulate themselves into being the new dictator. All right, that's kind of dark. What about some back in action? All right. Yep. So we'll get that all solved. That won't be an issue. All right. So we can go back to this. All right. How could the use of propaganda, and I'll probably just go to about 1:30, so like probably another 20 minutes. And there are, we're only on step six. I think even though there's a one answer for each step, there's about 40 or so different steps, different sections that it pulls you through. So maybe I could pick this up, but let's see. Pick one of your most compelling yarns and answer at least one of the prompts above. Twist it by imagining a surprising, destabilizing, or emotionally challenging development or reversal. How does this twist threaten to unravel or transform your protagonist's goals? All right, let's see. How could the use of propaganda, social media influence, or tactics by the protagonist Create blowback or backfire. Let's see. All right, I'm going to take this last one. Who or what stands in your way as the MC starts using his talents for chaos and manipulations? Are there rival influencers, estate propaganda, chief pure scribbles, or even artificial intelligence moderators? Twisted by imagined and emotional challenge. Okay, let's do a twist here. So let's say as the MC starts using his talents, chaos and manipulation, rival influencers, the state's propaganda chief, and I'm even going to use the AI thing and AI moderators step in his way. And I guess my twist would be, for their own goals, the twist would be that he ends up finding that each one of these is key to him manipulating and generating more chaos one by one. He turns them from adversaries into allies, discovering that collaboration is the key to domination. All right, so I loved all the different ideas of them getting in the way, and then he ends up finding, and instead of them just sitting and remaining as adversaries, he finds a way to turn them. You developed a bold, surprising narrative thread. Your main character, meant to be a subversive influencer, is co opted by the state and rises through manipulation collaboration to be the new face of oppression. And this is literally off of an idea for man versus state. And so, even just getting to this spot, now have before now he's becomes co-opted by the state and rises through manipulation and collaboration to be the new face of oppression. Now, before weaving everything into a draft synopsis, rinse and repeat, encourage you to circle back and use the same process with additional story questions and threads. So in the very first section, there's like different sections. In the very first section, we got this one idea of him being a social media influencer, and then we pulled on it and it's like, oh, maybe he finds that he likes the power, that he can manipulate stuff, and then he ends up taking over. And then, okay, well, because of that, now there's, three or four different oppositional forces. And then the twist on that is they all end up coming to his side because they see the benefit of being a collaborative thing. And maybe there is something about the labor camps that's kind of tied into the theme of it, sort of collaboration and work camps. So the idea is that you would loop back and do some of the other ones. I'll probably just skip ahead just to show some of the more of the process. But we could look back at our earlier list of questions, or you can just have it listed out. Which have you not explored in depth? For example, what is life like for the 10% outside of the camps? That would be very interesting. What's the true history between the daughter and the father? Is there an underground movement you could accidentally spark? That would be super cool too. Which part of your plot, character arcs, or world building still feels thin, stereotypical, or lacks a surprising twist? Are there supporting characters, background details, or thematic angles you're still curious about? What's another thread you would like to pull, twist, and spin into a story possibility? So choose at least one new story, question, character, unexplored detail. Start by pulling the thread. List your curiosity-driven questions about it, then twist and spin the thread with at least two surprising possibilities. And then we can repeat this as many times as we want to. And then once you feel like you've exhausted the threads, you may move on. So I might move on now. Maybe I should do this one real fast, just to show, just to get something that's a little more unique, a little bit different. So Pluto put the twist. Our main character takes on the persona or identity of the original dictator, thus escaping pursuit by what are now his own forces. That's actually a really cool ending. um, persona and identity of the original dictator, thus escaping pursuit by what are now his own forces. Okay. Where would I put that? Let me say that for a later idea. What is life like for 10% outside the camps? Choose at least one new story question, character, or unexplored detail. Start by pulling thread. Well, let's talk about the warden. So let's talk about the warden, who for right now seems very typical, you know, almost like I've seen it a million times. And maybe there is no real face to the warden. We never get to see him or it or they, whatever it is. Um, and the reason for that is that, or the surprise will be that by the end of it, um, he will take on the persona of that original dictator. Oh, I guess this is the dictator, though, not the warden. Okay, actually, let's talk about the dictator. If right now, dictator who is part of the 10%, if right now seems very typical, almost like I've seen a million times, and maybe there is no real face to these people, especially the dictator himself, or you get to see him or it or they or whatever it is. And the reason for that, or the surprise, will be by the end of it, the MC will take on the persona of that original dictator, um, thus escaping pursuit by what are now his own forces. Yeah, for Pluto's question, we asked, can Narrova identify which story parts seem trite or stereotypical? Absolutely. Uh, Let me do this one first. I love this idea because it helps answer that 10%. So let me do that one. And then once we've pulled on that a little bit, then I'll ask you about the stereotypical stuff. All right. You've identified your dictator and almost faceless member of the 10%, typical to the point of cliche until the surprise is revealed. By the end, your MC takes on that persona to escape his own regime's pursuit. It's a brilliant twist on both stereotype and power. So let's deepen and further twist this idea to keep subverting expectations and layering meaning. What tricks, rituals, or types of propaganda? And you'll find when you do this in isolation or by yourself, you'll probably be a little more open to answers and will be more personal and you'll get more into it. I found that I put a lot of myself into the story that I was working on as a test to the point where I won't show anybody because it's too revealing of my own personal stuff. What tricks? I mean, I would probably end up showing the end story, but the process of it, I definitely wouldn't. What tricks, rituals, or types of propaganda give the dictator a near mythical or human quality? Okay, voice changers, always hidden behind screens. Well, that sounds familiar. Collective identity. How do people justify never seeing or knowing the real dictator? Is it fear, tradition, or myth? Unexpected challenges, cause, or ironies come from the MC stepping in the faceless role. So you can see, like, the cliche thing would be the voice changer, always hidden behind the screen. That's, Wizard of Oz type stuff. Is it fear, tradition, or myth? I feel like that's been done a billion times. Unexpected challenges, costs, or ironies come from that. Describe your most intriguing twist. So, like all those ideas about, being hidden behind a screen and voice changing. and fear, and it's a myth, but really it's just a person who is propagating the myth. Like for me, that has all been done a billion times. So what are like 3 to 4 off the wall, completely brand new things to think about that would just take us away from the space? So this kind of answers your question, too. Like, get that in there a little bit. I kind of like the process that's here because it's kind of forcing you to think yourself and to think new questions to think about. So let's see. Distributed consciousness dictator. Instead of a single leader, the dictator is actually a collective rotating consciousness. Every day, a random member of the 10%. That's so cool. A random member of the 10% hosts the persona for a brief period, often against their will. The dictator is a moving collective mind with no permanent body or identity at all. Your MC eventually inherits this role, realizing it is both a curse and a powerful tool. Everyone is complicit, and no one is ever truly in control. Dang, so that just gives me a cool idea where it's like I would drop the spy thing, or maybe he's kind of like the spy thing, like he's trying to go against the regime, but he's part of the 90% and he ends up becoming part of this 10%. I love this idea. Fictional AI generated myth. The dictator never actually exists. See, that seems I've seen that before. Every order, broadcast, and thread is algorithmically generated by a super advanced storytelling AI designed to amplify social confusion through myth. Okay, that would definitely work. Eternal performance mob rule. The persona of the dictator is filled semi-randomly from a pool of actors or stand-ins drawn from the public, each of whom believes they alone are the real dictator during a term. That would be super cool for a different idea. I'm going to go with number one. Ooh, the dictator is not a living person, but a set of instructions, memes, and mind hacks passed like a viral memory through officials and citizens, similar to a contagious slogan or subconscious tick. All right, well, whoops. Well, the first, what was it? Distributed consciousness dictator idea sounds perfect to me. The rotating collective mind, who is 10% and who eventually ascends to adapt, combine, or riff on it. I mean, I love all of it. Take all of the ideas. Perfect. That would be a way to break out of the stereotype if you're stuck into it. So then now it's going to move on to the plot. You've pulled and twisted threads, and you can see if we wanted to, we could go back and like, wait, no, I want to keep pulling threads and coming up with more and more ideas before we even start getting into the plot that's there. So we're just going to make a quick little thumbnail sketch. How can you bring together your log line, your wildest, most intriguing threads, social media as a state tool, the 10% as a distributed consciousness, the main character's rise, betrayal, and transformation into a single story arc? What are the essential turning points for your main character, your daughter character, the warden in the world? Where does your story begin? How does the main character status change? And what final? I mean, we've answered a lot of these questions already. Weave your logline report into a one paragraph to one page synopsis. I mean, so this is the thing where it's like, well, we've already worked out a lot of what's going on, especially how it's going to start out as part of the 90% and think that social media influencing will be his way to gain some sort of control over his life. His daughter's marriage to the warden ends up giving him some greater insight into what life is like for the 10%. He ends up finding that he enjoys the power and the comforts of life And even though he meets all kinds of resistance in his attempt to, subvert the regime through his posts and um, showing, what's going on, when really the state is allowing this as it keeps the 10% in control and in place and loving what they're doing. It's like they're using that for their own benefit. They're doing, he ends up turning them all to his side, all those people who are against him, but maybe, you know, against him, but maybe, in doing so, he does end up creating the next wave of resistance, which will end up probably being another person who rises to power and then assumes their position as part of the 10%. Um, but in the end, he gets to a place where he becomes part of that collective 10%, only to find out it's just as bad a work camp as the 90%. He's 10% of the time. Is it enough? Um, so can you go ahead and put together that whole plot synopsis for me? That's what I would do. Because while we were going through all the questions, naturally coming up with the whole thing. So, in a near future dystopia where 90% of the population labors in repressive state run camps and only a privileged 10% live in apparent comfort, a restless, justice seeking man believes he can gain agency by becoming a social media influencer. Convinced that going viral, even inside the camps, will empower him and expose the regime's abuses, he pushes the boundaries, gaining notoriety both within the system and outside its walls. When his daughter's marriage to the ruthless camp warden unexpectedly grants him exposure to the lifestyle and intrigue with the elite 10%, he glimpses a reality that is both alluring and corrupt. Enticed by the comforts and status, he finds himself drawn into the machinations of propaganda, learning the true power of manipulation, first intending to subvert the regime, but soon mastering and exploiting its systems for his own ascent. Obstacles emerge as rival influencers. The regime's propaganda chief, rebel purists, and even AI moderators stand in his way. Yet his ingenuity twists each into an unwitting collaborator. His actions, far from inspiring resistance, are subtly sanctioned by the state to preserve the illusion of control for the 10% and inadvertently help cement the status quo. Yet through his very manipulations, he ends up catalyzing the seeds of the next wave of resistance waiting to erupt. The ultimate irony arrives as he's initiating the truth beyond the ruling class. There is no single dictator or face of power, but rather a rotating, distributed consciousness, with new dictators emerging from among the 10% and bearing the crushing responsibility of state control. When he finally joins their ranks, believing he's achieved total victory and escape, he discovers this new reality is its own gilded work camp, isolated, surveilled, and just as dehumanizing as the life he fled. In the closing moments as the machinery of power grinds on, he glimpses the next ambitious upstart rising from below, doomed to repeat the cycle, leaving readers with an open-ended question about freedom, complicity, and the true cost of control. Ah, perfect. And then you'll see like the next thing will be characters. And we're definitely going to keep working on. So this is what I always like to do because I'm from animation, so I love this kind of stuff. Um, we come up with a cool title. And let's do we can come up with a title first. So I like to do this stuff. Can you come up with a cool title first? All right. It's not going to give it to me. I just wanted to kind of give it to me, and it's like helping me think through it, which is very funny. What mix of tone do you want? Chilling? I think I want dystopian feel. I don't know if I would do dark satire, bleak irony. If anybody here has one that they like, I'd be more than happy to throw that in here. Cycle of the 10. Oh, that's cool. The collective influence state. Oh, influence state. Great. Behind the divide, work camp number 10 or district X. Oh, that would be funny. The mask of power. No. The distributed. Oh, that's cool. Echoes of the 10%. The Republic of Everyone. Viral authority, promoted content. Class 10, the power feed. I like influence state. Can we do influence state? All right, let's do that. Okay. First, let's do influence state for the title. I don't know. Like, I was watching Mickey 17 the other night. It's all right, but it's almost like so obvious nowadays. Dark satire, bleak irony. Um, Dystopian, I feel like it's been done forever. Man, I don't know. I guess it would be dystopian. Uh, Bleak irony, not like a comedy thing. Yeah, and I guess we'll go with the chilling dystopian type feel to it. But like an A24 version of dystopia. Click to subscribe. All right. And for the tagline, let's use 10% percent of the time. Is it enough? And generate a movie poster for this 916 aspect. Um, yeah, that would be enough. So yeah, let's do influence state for the title. And I'll go with chilling dystopia, but I'd rather have an 824 version of it. And then the tagline we want to use is use 10% of the time. Is it enough? So let's see. I had issues, yeah, like I said last week when I was doing the poster for the girl because she was 16 and had a gun. I'm sure this will be fine. It's very weird. Sometimes it'll do Mario and the princess, other times it won't. So let's see what it comes up with. And then that will be it for today. And I'm gonna keep doing this. I know I keep avoiding love under surveillance, but uh, this came out really well. I'm really surprised by how much I really enjoy the whole process from StoryWeaver. Like, obviously, it's coming from such a good spot, but just the fact of just like thinking through the ideas and how we're able to get from man versus state to now, oh, cool. These 10% of the time, is it enough? And this should be influence state. And what's great is this poster that's being generated, not only is the synopsis, but it's everything that's before. So it's all loaded up with all of the thinking that we did, all that thought process that we went through is coming through in this image here, as opposed to like, you just, there you go, influence state. The work camps, got everybody there. Featuring your chosen tagline is 10% of the time. Perfect. And yeah, if you wanted to, you can update it, change it around and stuff. All right. So that is a brief look, and then we'll go on. We're gonna do the characters. I'm definitely gonna do this every Wednesday at 12 Pacific. I might do more if there's enough demand. If people don't want to wait that long, I will definitely do that. And then we'll just go through the entire process so everybody can see what it's like. If you have any questions, let me know. This is live and already available in Narrova. All you do is just go to dramatica.com and sign up for the platform, and then you'll be able to start using it and start pulling the threads on the story that you are currently working on, or one that you don't even know that you had an idea for. Like we just started with man versus state, and then we got to this really, really cool idea that I'm so excited by. I still want to keep working on it. If you have any questions about it, either in the community, you can ask me there, or in the comments down below. Otherwise, I will see you next time. Thank you so much, everybody that came out, and I hope you have a wonderful week. Talk to you soon. Bye. Oh, where did he access the start of this new section? Ooh. Actually, before I go, Arlene, what is it that you're asking? Where did he access the start of this new section? Let's see. Let me bring it back up. Share screen here. Okay. So you're asking where did he access the start of this new section? Do you mean like as far as getting to start the new feature, the unspooling or whatever we end up calling it? Oh, let's see once this comes up. Share. All right. You there? Okay. So yeah, this the section is all you have to do in the beginning is just say, hey, I have an idea for a story, man versus ape. Anytime you're in a state where you're just starting out and you have no idea what it is that you want to do, or you're just starting with the story or you want to work on it, Narrova will already pick up on the fact that that's where your head is. And instead of diving into all the story forming, it'll go through this process. You could also conceivably, at this time, you could probably just say begin unspool, and it'll probably take you in there as well. Yeah, initiating the unspooling process. So then it will come in here and then start you off. So here, actually, this is probably better because you actually did an introduction to it. Here you'll transform your story ideas, no matter how small or scattered, into a cohesive, compelling narrative. Think of story creation as a journey. We pull threads of thought, twist them into yarns, and ultimately weave them into the rich tapestry of your manuscript. Unschool isn't about filling in templates or checking boxes. It's a dynamic step-by-step exploration that builds your story organically. You can start from a clear premise, a hazy hunch, or just the urge to tell a tale. At every stage, you'll shape, reflect, and refine. Yeah, that's why I came up with the name Unspool because it's such an unusual thing, but encourages unspooling, pulling out the thread ideas. So you know, type Unspool, begin Unspool, and then you'll see this is the same first step that we started off before. But what's really great is even if you're not aware that this is what it's called, if you're in a state of, oh, I have this idea for a story, it will send you to that area as opposed to going through all the story form and stuff. And what's great is when we get to the end, you can take all that work and then get the story form and then go back over it, make sure you've got all the whole everything will be thematically coherent. Like everything's connected. It's just a matter of what path you're going to go down first. So that's a great question. So thank you so much. And then I guess I will call that hour and a half is pretty good. Thank you everybody who's patient through the audio stuff. And then I will see you either in the community or I will see you next time for the next live stream. Have a great night.